So, Kai, and welcome. Kai, and welcome to this launch of issue number 32 of Garland. I'm Kevin Murray, editor, and I'm speaking to you from Melbourne, otherwise known as Naarm, the land of the Wurundjeri people. And I pay my respects to the elders past and present, and particularly express gratitude as a settler for the welcome ceremony that is gifted in so many public events, which gives a sense of connection to country, which would otherwise be missing in what are quite formal proceedings. And this has marked a very important part of what it is for all Australians to experience how we come together. And I pay my respects to elders past and present, and to the ancestors of the lands where you come from as well. So, welcome to this third issue of the Sensorium series. So this series is designed to help understand and value the depth of experience of craft beyond the visual, how it is that we use it as a platform to taste, to hear, to smell, and to touch. And in this way, understand how it is something we engage with in our everyday lives, which gives it meaning both privately and something we share. And as usual with these events now, we try and find a way of going beyond the visual and auditory that we're experiencing at the moment. And I invite you to, if you do have a fragrance with you or a scent, I can see some of Gary's incenses wafting across the screen, to get access to that now before we hear from a recitation from our Tongan colleagues. Oh, that's quite impressive, Gary. You can please feel free to put in the chat the detail of the particular scent. And this is the white cloud incense that is part of the memorial to Ross Gibson, to whom this particular issue is dedicated. So, and I want to acknowledge up front as well, Laila Al-Hamad, the guest editor who's with us, who will speak on behalf of her article, but some of the others too that she helped commission. So I would like to call on now Hufanga Dr. Okasitino Mahina to provide us with the Tongan recitation. And during the course of this, I encourage you to experience the particular smell or fragrance that you have with you at the moment. Thank you, Hufanga.
This is a poetry of introduction and salutation. O ta'anga whakawhailoaki mo e whakatapa. Alak, it is titled Maile, which is a sweet-scented color in Tongan culture. The leaves, sweet-smelling, which I'm here wearing. As a matter of fact, this is Maile. Alake. I will just recite the Tongan version, and then may I ask that you please follow the English translation on the right of the screen facing you, depending on which is which. Tapuange moha'a moheofo, pea moeha'a siulanga po, moe katoa oe huelo, o tau laani te eki ke tō. Whakatapu ena kua ato, moe talanoa ho tau aho, kua maarie ho tau hua. pea horo mo ho tau haofanga. Tuku ke ulau e mātanga. Lake. Kai whai ai ha amo e wā. He te ria si a sola o kutaka ngā nofo whakatupu taelata. O ka ngatu wai si ono kakala o ikai ke huia e hataha. Ha maile ha ngai toke lau pea moe hingano I ana manu. Rou hunie otu motu lalo na e pelu o ka hunie lolo. Sei o hatau kei ni vanua. Ne mamata he te au I maunga. Kumi o po oi pea mo where unga. Hala toa ne mau mau koula. Mui mui kau taki a koe I he whanga o kutuu he mape. O hake I manawanga whakahe ke lanu I he vai o lupe. Whanongo he whetau moe tue ai manu e wheinga kotone. He kai ngalo ho o manatu. He fiafi o ka tō e malu. Hange ha manu o ku kakau si I ata o e owawa kulu. I he funga wai ko hoa heu. Wā dau anga o e fine tori, toileti I he paki moe toi. Ko e mea ia kuou I loi, hei kai hatoe fie foki. Te upuke ai matangi tonga ke oua e wholau hawaka. Ko e pā e pua tare fusi, whanga I he si pia mo paluki. Alua ko e kau nofo au, te u atu e moi moi wholau. Ko e kiaki o koronga hau, o ku mānoa I he salu. Ke tori I ho mou waha pe au, a ika wuka e waha palau. Ka whanai e lofia pea tau, pea nofo I a tuu aki tau. Ka puna hao tuku kene alu, siutaka I he utu kalongalu. I he sia ko ka foa motalau, fusi a e kia gini ke hau. Hau o tuula I pale a mahu, ko e fui ena kua alu, tā mafua I hakau tapu. Heua e sia ko hala e walu, hala I mala e pea moe hau, tau haka I he langi kua tau, si e tau taka I whanua maru. Malopita. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hufanga, for that beautiful recitation, which does really, I think, put us in the frame of mind for what we have to hear today. So I'd like to now call on Angie Martin, whose piece on the distillation of the sandalwood oil was a wonderful contribution to this issue and begins the series on distillation as the first way of smell. Thank you, Angie.
Hi, everyone. Am I off mute? Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Kevin, for the introduction. Oh, there we go. So yeah, my name's Angie Faye Martin. I'm a writer and an editor based here in Meangie in Brisbane. I'm on Gubbi Gubbi country, and I pay my respects to my Cooma and Kamilaroi elders. I had the honour of speaking to the Matu and Wangi people over in Western Australia. They contacted me this time last year, actually. And they have a beautiful company, Dutchan Sandalwood Oils. It's so beautiful because of the way that they run the operation. In Australia, we have what's called native title. And the Matu and Wangi people are exceptional in that they have native title with resource extraction rights. So they have been able to merge their traditional culture with economic empowerment, and they've taken full advantage of this opportunity, and they continue to harvest and care for the country in the same way that they've done for 40,000 years. And in doing so, the end product that they get from the harvesting of this sandalwood is absolutely divine. It's beautiful. when I spoke to the elders, I could sense just how much they knew and understood and listened to country. They absolutely walk the talk. They know every tree, they know where to plant, they know how the animals fossick and the entire ecology of the area. And I should have said before, this is in one of the most remote and arid areas of Australia in the far west, where the Simpson Desert meets the Great Sandy Desert. It's very arid. But yeah, they know the area very well. They've developed a successful company, and they give ranger programs to the young people coming through so that they are receiving a career and an education and a future that will connect them to culture as well. So I'm very grateful to Garland for the opportunity to share in my fellow mob from the other side of the country, share their journey. It was a fantastic opportunity, so thank you.
Thanks so much, Angie. And it was wonderful also for you to reflect on how it relates to your own experience too, in terms of your Kumar identity. How would you describe the smell, since you have it with you, the sandalwood oil?
Yes.
We can't transmit smell on Zoom, but how would you describe it?
How would I describe it? It's very earthy, very relaxing, but it's also strong but not overpowering. And doing this research, I talked a lot to my father and realized that my great-grandmother used to smoke out the children with sandalwood as well. So it's also been in my lineage on the East Coast, although a different variety of sandalwood. So that was a nice journey that I went on.
Yeah, so much to learn and experience. Thank you so much, Angie. And now we go to Gippsland, to Bridget, and the life of a rosemary distiller. Bridget, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm in South Gippsland on the country of the Gunai Kurnai people, and I've only been here for 6 years. So learning a lot about the place is part of my journey, and an ongoing experience. I came to distilling late in life, but really entered it, I guess, for a lot of different reasons, partly due to the fact I'd always wanted to be a farmer and wanted to live closer to the land, but felt that I didn't know enough to actually take that on in any sense, particularly with any kind of animals. I'd also studied aromatherapy many years ago, and I think probably for me the most poignant experience was that of living in India as a child and being surrounded by really sort of warming, earthy, pungent smells that somehow really affected my psyche, I think, and entered my body. And today I actually brought not rosemary, but this little pot. As you can see, it's really tiny, but this is carved from sandalwood. And I've had it for just on 50 years. And I can still, if I take the lid off, I still can smell the sandalwood. And it's just always been very special. I've moved all the time and always had this little piece of sandalwood with me. And I think so having started distilling, I sort of came to realize, what role that plays in my life and how it combines with an art practice that is, really quite different, although still craft-based, and just how the act of growing, the whole process of growing and then harvesting and then I strip my rosemary, so the sort of stripping the time with the plant, and then the distilling, how that really grounds me, together with the scent actually of the rosemary. But the whole process is, I think, something that's just been really important to me in my journey through life. Is that
Great, thank you. Yes, and thanks for your previous stories as well, Bridget. It's wonderful to see the progress from particularly your ceramics into distillation.
Yeah.
And briefly, how would you describe the smell?
It's such a good question and such a hard one to answer. For me, I think it's like, it always makes me think of sort of mossy rocks, dark, shiny, really pristine, clear water with mossy green rocks. It does smell citrusy, sort of earthy, and a kind of bitter sweetness, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's pretty intense, but yeah, that's the
Well,
best
it sounds like
description.
we need poets as well as those who can do the distillation to
Yeah.
enhance. Thank you so much. And now we
Pleasure.
go back to the Tongan story, and I'd like to welcome back Ufanga Okasitino Mahina, but also Kolakesa Wafa Mahina Duai and Simisi Potuane. So welcome. And this, of course, is a very complex story about Tabaism and smell. But if you would like to say something briefly about that and the significance of it to Tongan culture, that would be terrific.
Yoto'ofa, Kai, and greetings to you all. Friends and colleagues, scholars and artists, thinkers and makers, and all of the above. In a nutshell, paper sets out to argue for the existence of 6 senses in correspondence to their doorways, of which 4, both senses and doorways, are external, and 2, both senses and doorways, are internal. For the external senses and their corresponding doorways, we have Ihu, nose, we have Nanamu. For the nose, Ihu, Whanonga for the ears, Telinga, or hearing, and Aiahi, tasting, for the tongue, mouth, so to speak, and the 4th one, Ongalo. And then, of course, the corresponding doorways are the nose, the ears, the eyes, and the tongue. And then for the internal senses and their corresponding doorways, we have knowing and feeling. Knowing in the brain as the internal doorway, and feeling for the heart as the internal doorway. So we have a total of 6, all as pairs or hoa. To argue for the existence of 5 external senses and their corresponding external doorways is a matter for further research, because we are here quite determined to push that frontier by investigating as to whether there is a 5th sense in the fifth doorway, notably ala or touching with the hand. What about the feet? What about the other parts of the body which can also feel? That's highly problematic. Anyway, our Taoist critique here is to bring both the mind and the heart to a common critical focus, and not to exclude feelings and desiring in the heart as if they are an obstacle, like what science does. That science tends to treat the heart, and for that matter, feelings and desiring, as obstacles. Goodness sake, they needed to be addressed equally, like the mind, knowing and thinking, and not exclude one over the other. And that's basically what we are doing here, or in our article or essay.
Well, thank you so much for generously providing that, but also for what you've given in our previous learnings, particularly the one about deep time, where the idea of the past being in front of us was one that helped guide us towards an understanding. And as with this sensorium, we are now thinking about an end where we can imagine how the senses come together. So the way you've laid it out here gives us a way of thinking beyond just simply the more scientific version of perception to something which is more cultural. So thank you so much, Ufanga, for that, and also for Kesa and Semisi. Much appreciated. And now we go to Layla Al-Hamad, who is really offered the inspiration for this particular series with her initial story about smell in Kuwait. And I'm really pleased that she was able to share a personal story, but also bring other stories from the region together. Welcome, Layla.
Thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you for giving me the space and the opportunity to talk about the sense of smell. And I wrote a short piece for Garland that really is about smell as an inheritance. And this is something I came to later in life, when I realized that many of the memories that I had of my childhood, where I was born, where I lived, Kuwait, were really tied to smell. So the smell of the cardamom tea that I had in the morning, the smell of the rose water, which we use on fresh laundry, the smell of oud that we use for ceremonies, whether it's weddings or funerals, camphor as well, when somebody dies. So it's a sense of smell in a place like Kuwait, which many might think of as a barren landscape, which it is because of its ecology, is really a source of immense cultural wealth. And it's something that I didn't realize. I grew up, we're very much in the Western tradition of education. I had a French school education where, you know, everything had to be rational and you used your eyes and you didn't. And so this is a sort of awakening that I eventually had when I went back home and I tried to reconnect to my own culture. So for me, it has been an immense source of inspiration and also a source of appreciation. And lastly, I found that there's a shared culture of smell that binds so many cultures together, whether it's rituals of death, of birth, of hospitality. And that was heartwarming in a time where we tend to find that people are so divisive and this is mine and this is yours, but really scent and scent rituals have emerged in different parts of the world, and yet they're so similar in their humanity. So the piece I wrote, again, is evoking some of these childhood memories, but also talking about how in a place like Kuwait, where we are, let's say, there are two worlds. So the very capitalistic world that Kuwait lives in because of this immense oil wealth that it inherited. from a resource, really it did nothing to work for. And at the same time, this tradition that goes back to the trade with India, that goes back to the trade with other parts of the Mediterranean, etc. There really is a culture of spices, of aromas, of smells that is just, again, heartwarming. And there are still people that hold on to that culture. And that culture is not just about smell, and it is also about the lack of commodification of that smell, the fact that people keep their family recipes. When you make your own perfume, you don't share that, you gift it to people. So there's a whole culture that has escaped the capitalist world, which is incredibly fascinating and very, very little understood. So I touched upon some of these in this essay, and I thank you, Kevin, for the opportunity to have done that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have to credit, obviously, you as a designer of the receptacles for the burning of the oud as well, not just as a writer.
Yes,
So,
and this one was if you read the article, this is the burner that my aunt had gifted me. It's the Yemeni burner, and it's very tiny, and as you see, it fits in my hand, and it has these beautiful geometric motifs. And so this is one of the reasons I started on this adventure. Thank you.
well, it's a good example of how those objects make smell tangible and
Exactly.
complement it. So now I'd like to call on another significant influence in this issue, Japneet Keith, who shared much of her experience within the Hindu culture in terms of the role of smell. Japneet, welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. And namaskar to everybody. The word namaskar in my culture means that my soul bows down to your soul, and so my heartfelt greetings to all of you around this globe. I've got a fragrance today here. It's the Aboriginal Six Sense series fragrance, and it's got a few beautiful it's for the first rain June season, and it's got sandalwood oil, it's got orange, rose, geranium, lemon, and kunzia oil and rosalind. It's made by a Aboriginal lady here, and so I thought it's just something very special because I'm on a journey. I come from India, but I've been in Australia now for good 9.5 years. And it's only very recently I realized this is home as well. Kevin, thank you for this opportunity because I'm a very young writer at the moment, and it's easier to scribble thoughts, but it has been quite a deep journey to just put it all together and put it out for someone else to read. And it's still, I still can't believe it. So thank you for this opportunity. I wrote about the lotus bloom because many of us plant a lotus plant in our garden thinking it's lotus, but it actually is water lily. But if you see the characteristics of a lotus flower, it's not an easy thing, it's just there for about maybe 48 hours, and its life and its journey, and it's got a very strong connection to the goddesses and the pujas, because I think it's considered as such a strong flower when it blooms, that it has a lot of auspiciousness involved with it. In this article, when I wrote, I was going through each god and goddess has their own fragrance. So when you spend a little time to read it, you'll see that each of it connects, and it's a very strong, powerful occasion when they worship the Durga and everybody gets together. I mean, it's a bit of a mythology and the real world coming together. And that feeling in Bengal, it goes on for days. It goes on for almost a month, 30 days, and how people look forward to it, how women look forward to it, the sounds, the smells. And I think this was something that I think is very deeply enriched with the Northeastern culture. With the culture I come from, Punjab, it's mostly the warrior clan. So we are not actually accustomed to such deeper, powerful prayer ceremonies. And I hope you enjoy reading it. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity,
Thank you,
Kevin.
Chapneet. And it's wonderful how you could string the scents together with the deities. It was like a
Thank you.
conceptual garland as you did it. Thank you. And
Thank
now
you
we
so
go
much.
north to somebody who's proven to be a very regular and wonderful contributor, Gary Warnell, one of our perennials, talking about incense making in Nepal, in Kathmandu. Welcome, Gary.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I had it on mute. Okay. Well, I want to thank you also, everyone, for their amazing articles. Angie Martin talked about the earthy quality of this material, and that is the thing that I find so powerful here every morning when I go for my walk to the stupa. There's a kind of earthiness in the burning of this incense, which comes from basically from the forests and the jungles around here. So you're always brought somehow down to earth in a very fundamental way. You feel it very deeply, and that to me, in a city which is largely concrete jungle, is very sort of stabilizing and profound. So the incense I have here is actually called, it's a rope incense. And unlike incenses, which are quite commonly applied to bamboo sticks, this is actually wound into locta paper. So the powders, all the ingredients are mixed up very finely and then wound into the paper. And the interesting thing about this city is that everywhere you go, incense is burning. And in our house, it's burning in the morning. When I'm in Finland, I'm also burning it. And it somehow starts my day. But here, women who are working in small corner shops or on the street, they do a variety of small craft tasks, which involve this making of this incense. So they'll be doing this on the street, as they would also be making these small wicks for burning oil. In the Bodha Stupa, they burn oil lamps every day. So there's always some kind of burning going on, and it's extremely beautiful. It's incredibly cheap. This costs $1 for 4. I think there's about 20, 25 sticks in this bag of 4, and it's $1. And you know, it's just everything is just gathered from the forest and ground down. And here you see in the pictures the raw materials, which are also brought in by the sackload. And the makers come and they collect 2 or 3 kilos at a time and go home and make it. And this is just such an important part of life here in Nepal. The morning ritual of going for Kora around the Bodhanath Stupa and putting your head near this big cauldron of incense burning. And somehow it's just a fundamental part of my day here. And yeah, it's a craft which I admire. These women sitting and making, and they do it in seconds. I mean, the skill and the dexterity is so lovely to watch. So, and thank you for being a part of this. I thought all the stories are so richly described and visually wonderful to look at. So it's opened up a whole new world for me of this scent theme. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gary. It seems like no matter what theme we get in Garland, there's always a very unique Nepalese angle on it that you can provide. So thank you.
This is the little metal container, which is very often hung at the sides of monks as they walk, and they are swinging it. So it's not so dissimilar to the Orthodox religion in Helsinki, where my other home is. And yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you. And now we go back to India with a remarkable documentary by Lokesh Guy and Jamin. So, Lokesh and Jamin, would you like to tell us about this?
This offering is actually a collaboration, like Kevin said, with me and Jemin. And for the first time, I have this article, and along with it sits this short documentary. And I like to share the backstory. So I was for over a month in an immersive research study in this remote village in the mountains, and we were to look at textile and basically heritage of tailoring. And fragrance was not part of the plan, but it is because of the garland theme that we saw that it can't be ignored. It's something which is practiced every day. And it's also very interesting. I was reflecting how so this is by a community who are strong followers of Shiva. And the fragrance is an agency which connects uh, the the disciple and the deity. And it's really interesting, the idea about what can't be seen in the universe. So it's like fragrance or smell we can't touch, see, and it's similarly the universal or the god we can't touch and see, and how both of them kind of combines. And it was a beautiful ritual every day in the morning and evening. And it's just like creating the fragrance. That's what the article tells, and the short creative documentary also tells. And it's then on a it's like creating a dove, and every morning and evening pinching out a small part and then offering it in the kitchen, which is really the heart of the house where the entire family sits together. And this is a community who are semi agriculture, semi nomadic, and they're very they're not really financially affluent, very basic lifestyle. And then how scent really creates something magical. So yes, so that's what Dhubatti is about, and I'll invite Jemin to add to this. Hi Jemin, are you there? So maybe he is facing the sound issue. Sorry, my mic isn't working. Okay, so Jemin, maybe you could type something and the audience could read to it. So I'll invite everybody to please uh, enjoy the film also, because this film is specially created for this platform, and that was our motivation. And I'll also like to uh, I also read some of the articles. Gary's article was really interesting, and also Don's article in particular, because it took me to my childhood memory of the town of Kannauj in North India. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Lokesh, and congratulations on it featuring in a film festival as well. I'm glad it's going to be seen broadly. Now I'd like to welcome a very special writer, Priyanka Jain. Again, from an Indian perspective, but something which looks at the narrative behind a particular kind of smell, which is the smell of rain. Priyanka, welcome. She left briefly and she's joining us. Now she's with us, Priyanka. Good.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. I am in Sydney right now. I'm on the train, but anyways, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about the smell of rain. So in English, or in scientific terms, the smell of rain is called petrichor. But every language has its own smell. In Hindi, it's called mitti ki sondi sondi khushbu, or the sweet, sweet smell of mud. And what I found out, I was working with, I was reading microbiology and things like that, and I realized that there is a particular bacteria called actinomycetes that create this oil called geosmin. And when that oil comes out in the air, it really, that smell that comes out of this oil is what we understand as the smell of rain. And it has a very fascinating role to play for lovers, because we all feel drawn out to our balconies. And in Indian miniatures, there is a girl, or there is a heroine character called Abhisarika, who goes out, whether it's middle of the day, if it's middle of the night. Generally, it is a dark, stormy, rainy night, but she doesn't care. She goes out to meet her lover. And I kind of think that somewhere that smell of rain has a big part to play um, in drawing her out of her house to meet her lover. And so I created a performance of poetry that is at Sydney Fringe this week and at Melbourne Fringe in October, which talks about the smell. It talks about her going out to meet her lover. And that's so one of the songs of that performance is in the text that I have written. And yeah, thank you for reading it, and thank you for sharing with me the smell of rain.
Thank you, Priyanka, and thank you for the almost performative nature of your presentation on the run
Thank you.
in Sydney. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And while we're still in India now, I'd like to call on, I think Shivani is with us from the MAP Academy.
Hi, Kevin.
Greetings.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Kevin, for this opportunity. I'm Shivani, and I'm from the MAP Academy. I'm here on behalf of Simran Agarwal, who's the author of this article. She's part of our research team, and she was very excited to write this piece for The Guardian magazine. When we were ideating for this piece, we were looking through miniature paintings and how scent has been represented in visual and literary sources that came out from the Deccani, the Rajput, and the Mughal courts of South Asia. While going through some of the miniature paintings as part of research, we found ourselves, transformed in an environment of calculated decadence. We could imagine gilded worlds with carefully created olfactory atmosphere made up of scents derived from petals, leaves, woods, animal parts, and also using of formulae that have been perfected and passed down through generations. So this article sort of looks at the history of scents and the different areas it touches through the courtly cultures of South Asia. We looked at prescriptive text dedicated to elaborate regimens of perfuming, treaties which enlist the precise origins of different musks, as well as paintings which illustrate how perfumes and pastes were made and also applied to bodies and the walls of the courts. A careful examination of these sources showed us that perfumes were not just aesthetic adornment, but also markers of cultural refinement and superiority in South Asia. Both Indic and Persianate discourses on perfumery sort of underline the transformative power of smell and how it affects the wearer and those around the person in internal ways, mentally, through physiologically. And finally, the article also explores the political economy of scent and how the South Asian elites of the time, by perfuming their bodies and spaces, wielded sense inherent powers of transformation to gain social and political power in these worlds. So yeah, that's what our article covers, and I hope you enjoy reading it. I just wanted to quickly show, I'm an avid collector of Ittar, and this one is rose, and this is actually musk, but it has a very different, I actually bought it for the color, but it also smells very thickly of musk. So yeah, thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shivani, and thank you for being such a reliable contributor through the MAP Academy that helps us understand, the context, the historical context of these senses as well in Indian culture. Now I'd like to go further south to Sri Lanka to welcome Inoka Samarasakara. talk about
Hello.
the way of adornment in jewelry.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Inoka. I'm a jewelry designer and an academic from Sri Lanka. I'd like to share a bit about my necklace that I created as part of my practice-based research. I'm named it as a mid and in between, drawing inspiration from the narratives of the Sri Lankan diaspora in Sydney. The necklace's central part is electroformed cardamom pods. These are cardamoms which I brought, which hold deep symbolism. Cardamom, known as the queen of spices, is not only used to enhance flavors, but is also native to South Asia, including Sri Lanka. However, it is often considered exotic in Australia, where I'm now. To me, these cardamom pods symbolize the international mobility of the Sri Lankan diaspora here and their emotional ties to their homeland. And I used the jewelry electroforming technique as a unique process that converts natural objects into metal forms. Remarkably, even after the electroforming process, I could still detect the aroma of cardamoms. This directed me to realize the power of smell in triggering memories, especially for diaspora communities. And in crafting the necklace, I corrected the copper electroformed cardamom pods using tiny silver beads. To keep the design simple, I created a single loop. This design choice highlights the continuing aroma of the cardamom beads, acting as a bridge in between the migrants' homeland and their diasporic contexts. And thus, the name Amid and Between was born. Thank you very much, Kevin and Garland, for this valuable opportunity, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Inoka. And now I'd like to call on Chloe Wolfson, who looks at the final way of scent, which is the way it enhances our other experiences, particularly in the gallery. So, Chloe.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I also would like to acknowledge traditional custodians of country. I'm speaking to you from Bullinaming, otherwise known as Marrickville, the lands of the Gadigal and Wangal people. My piece was a sort of a profile, I suppose, of perfume. A perfumer called Bharti Lalwani, who is based in Pune, India, and her and her collaborator Nicholas Roth have created a beautiful exhibition called Buggy Hind, which is exists online and has also had a physical iteration at the Institute for Olfactory. Sorry, I haven't really prepared my remarks very well. The Institute for Art and Olfaction in Los Angeles, and they've just confirmed that they'll be having another iteration in Europe coming up, which I find it really fascinating, the idea of an exhibition that can kind of exist digitally and travel around and have these scents kind of emerge and re-emerge. So Bharti is a self-taught scent maker, I suppose. She studied at Central St. Martin's, studied art there, and then went on to study at the Sotheby's Institute in Singapore. She originally grew up in Nigeria, and then now she finds herself in Pune, and she's just sort of self-taught herself this practice, and then after sort of creating a few fragrances, found her way to collaborating with Dr. Nicholas Roth, who is a Harvard-based academic and gardener. And the exhibition is sort of centered around these 5 different paintings and the sort of scents therein. And it's really lovely to sort of think about bringing these paintings to life by sort of examining the different plants that are depicted in these paintings, and then Nicholas actually grows a lot of these sort of particular plants in his garden, as well as studying them. And then Barty has sort of conjured these scents in her studio. And so it's a really lovely sort of mix of gardening, of perfumery, of art, of academia, of craft. And yeah, I guess I would just encourage you all to go and explore the online exhibition, which you know, is this beautiful kind of multi-sensory experience, I suppose. And then, you know, you can also experience the scents by by actually purchasing them if you're so inclined. The scent I brought with me today actually is the Barty's green chutney. There you go. The green chutney solid perfume that I acquired from Litrab Perfumery a few years ago now, but it's still going strong. And yeah, I'm not sure if I've covered it very articulately, but it's just been such a pleasure to be able to bring this project to light a bit more, because I think it's just such a fascinating practice. And yeah, just thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks so much, Chloe, for tying together some interesting threads in this series too, in terms of perhaps going back to the MAP Academy's understanding of smell through Indian art, and to see it now realized in curating is something which opens new doors for us. So thank you so much. Now, finally, we go to somebody who must get the gold medal for attendance today from Chile. If she's able to come to the microphone. Liliana Ojeda, are you still with us? It's very early in the morning, I think.
It is very early for me.
Buenos
you hear me?
dias.
Buenos dias.
Yes.
Good morning. Thank you, Kevin. I called my article "Smelling is Believing," like the saying "seeing is believing." I just changed the words "seeing" for "smelling." I thought it was a nice change on that saying. And I start talking about COVID-19 and how this disease made us very aware of the sense of smell, since one of the symptoms of the disease is the loss of smell. And I even put an example of someone who lost his smelling ability and then recovered it only through his nose training. And I thought I could write something about smell in relation to a series of work that I've been making with my colleague Clarissa Mentellaga. We kind of discovered that we could work together in 2020 when we were working on a workshop, and we realized that our work kind of went together very well. We come from jewelry making, and starting working together and making these large installations was like a really new step for us. And we compound this work part by part. We put it on the wall or we hang it on a ceiling. So we had a really nice experience in the creation of Biomatter. That is the name of the work. Last year, we could show this work in the Creation Biennale Revelations in Paris. And one of the things that called my attention in that venue is that people were asking what were the materials. And when I told them the materials that we made the work with, they immediately came closer to the work to smell it. And as if their nose could check that those materials were really there. So I thought that was a very interesting aspect of the work. Just to tell you that we work with grapefruit, lemons, and orange peels with seaweed. and we add pigments like beetroot, purple corn, spirulina, and turmeric to give it a natural pigment. And so I kind of I started like studying about smells, and in my writing I mentioned the sociologist Anthony Synod, who wrote about the sociology of smell. I mentioned Helen Keller, a deaf-blinded American. I mentioned Louise Allen. I think she's from New Zealand, and she's like a researcher. And I kind of found like a new vocabulary to talk about smell. And I learned sentences like smell signature, smell walks, smellfy, or smellscape. And I thought it was nice, this new way of perceiving the world through smell. So in my article, I make some kind of questions like, what is the odor of nothing? Or if we could really describe the smell of our home. And I end my writing saying that being in the presence of this work that we make together with Clarissa called Biomatter, if we confront the work with our own memories, because we can smell it, the smell is very strong, and we mix what we see, what we touch, with what we can smell, and that brings our own memories to the work. So I think that smelling is a really powerful tool that can bring our past into the present in an instant.
Thank you so much.
So,
Muchas gracias,
thanks to
Liliana,
you.
for helping us understand the complexity, or like the Taoism for the Tongans, giving us some words and so on to think more deeply about it. But before you go, can you tell us something about a distinctly Chilean smell?
Chilean smell. Well, these days we're celebrating our national day, so everyone is doing barbecues. So if you go out, you smell that everyone is cooking in their gardens, and they are cooking meat. So it smells really strong, like barbecue, and that smells sticking in your hair, in your clothes, and it's not so nice because it's the smell of dead animal.
Right.
But in my workshop, I have some lovely materials that I collect that smell really nice, warm, and acidity together, sweetness. So it's my workshop is always smelling these materials, which accompany me every day.
But you also have, is it palo, the wood?
No, I don't have that palo. I just have the peels of the fruits, and the color is still very alive, even though this is very dry now.
Mm-hmm.
And it smells a lot.
Right. Well, I guess there's also sometimes tear gas too, given what happens in Santiago as well. So lots of incidental smells.
Yeah, and here we have a very dry climate, so everything dries very easily. And just you put it outside and it's dry in one day.
So yes, thank you so much, Liliana. A wonderful perennial.
Thanks to you for the opportunity. Thank you.
I think just finally, if we could go back through Lila, if you could just say something briefly, since she's not able to join us, somebody that you helped bring to our attention, the work of Rima Abu Hassan. Can you say something briefly about that?
Yeah, so Rima Abu Hassan is a young Palestinian based in Doha, Qatar, and she is a ceramicist, and she had a project that involved monumentalizing rituals of her identity. She is Palestinian, third generation, And once a year with her grandmother and the entire family, they would get together and they would perform certain rituals that connected them to their lost homeland of Palestine. And it was a sort of this collective memory that would come and be celebrated once a year through the sense of smell. So they would be making these biscuits called marmoul, they're date cookies, or you would put walnuts in them. And the aroma itself would bind them together, and it's something that has stayed with her. And she turned it into handcrafted objects that were artisan made. So she designed them and worked with artisans to have them. So in a way, what her inheritance, what she brought with her as the sense of connection through the sense of smell, which reminded her of a lost homeland that she never knew, of a grandmother that was of a certain age, of certain smells that she was told about as a child, from stories that she'd heard. She turned them all into objects that commemorated the sense of smell and gave it kind of homage. So that was a beautifully written article. And I mean, it was both, you know, a practical from the sense of the craft, but also sensible from the sense of emotional connection. So that was Rima's beautiful work.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us too, and also Sigrun van Rood's article too, amongst others. So thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
well that brings us to a close. I hope we haven't overlooked anyone. Just in a couple of minutes, does anyone have anything that they would like to share, any observation about the kinds of stories that we've heard so far today? Any thoughts? I note particularly Ufanga saying something about the way smell is used for navigation. Simisi, did you have something to say?
Yes, just quickly, Kevin, thank you so much for collating us this evening. It's lovely to see all your faces and putting faces to the amazing articles that have been circulating around in this publication. Thank you all. I'm just amazed by how the sense of smell have managed to infiltrate into the visuals, in particular for the Tongans. You know, there's the visual concoctions of all of those fragrances, not only red is the sense of smell, but also read in visuals. So that gives, for me, is a strong implication of how the strength of the sense of smell that leads us. And according to our Tongan and Taoism, which is in front of us, which is the past, we tend to, I guess, look for something is already in the past in front of us, where this our writing is circulating upon the idea that we seek what is already there in terms of why we long for this amazing smell. So thank you all. So that's my short comment. I'm thoroughly enjoying all your talks and also putting faces to the names. Thank you very much.
It's a very nice point, given that smell usually involves some time delay, doesn't it? Unlike certainly vision and perhaps even sound, which is relatively immediate. You know, smell takes a while to. So it is the past that is in front of us in the experience of smell.
Absolutely, and I think you can find those in our little small contribution to the wider article.
Good.
I guess the wider.
And the relationship between smell and sight, I think, presages the way in which we'll try and start to weave the senses together by the end. We've already in this issue looked at the connection between smell and sound, the idea of listening to incense in Japanese culture. So their senses are beginning to come together.
Yeah, and it's some of the arrangement of the Tongan garlands are actually arranged. They call it whakaotusia. It's in the manner of arranging the pyramids. So all our burial grounds in Tonga are arranged in this kind of sequence. So it's like a sequence of how you place a lot of the burial grounds. And it's amazing for us is why would our ancestors tend to arrange the two, and there's to do with the shapes, the diamond shapes arranged in a certain, and I guess the concoction and the aroma have to, I guess, a place in the because they give off in this certain mix. So for me, this is the part that amazes me in the research in the work is how will you arrange the garlands and the color of them slightly different and gives off a certain mix of the smell. So that's
it's like a kind of a symphony of smell.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think certainly these stories reveal that when we go beyond the visual, we understand cultures in a much deeper and more complex way. It adds certainly to our experience of them. So thank you so much for sharing that and for inspiring us all to experience, to be in the world and to make culture, to keep culture alive every day when we burn or smell or distill or ensure that the fragrances stay fresh. So thank you so much. Go well. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Kiran.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.